Alright, I'm done testing the Scimitar by Sabersmith, and here is the review. If you haven't seen the first impression video shortly after it was sent to me, it'll be linked in the video description down below. This is a historically inspired fantasy design. All blades by Sabersmith are handmade in the US of 1075 high carbon steel and heat treated to a hardness of 56 to 58 HRC. It's full tang through the handle, and it's also the entire width of the handle. So that's pretty massive. I don't know how the pommel is put on. It does not appear to be peened, at least I don't see any sign of it. Could be threaded, could be welded, could be some other construction. I just can't say for sure. What I can say is that it's very securely mounted. Same goes for the guard, you'll see that later. And the base price of the Scimitar is $500 US. There are also customization options that may cost some more. For example, if you want etching or an oxide finish, there are various options for the blade finish and the guard and pommel finish. There's also several options for the handle and sheath or scabbard. So you can customize that a little bit. It came with this info sheet about the company and the blades. So it's always nice when the maker is forthcoming with information. It says what kind of steel it is and the heat treatment. It also says lifetime guaranteed for standard sword use, and they actually specify here yes to tatami mats, blade on blade, or fruit ninja, no to chopping down oak trees, etc. And that makes a lot of sense. It says your blades are sharpened to a working sword edge. Dull training swords or razor edges are available on request. So it sounds like what they call a working sword edge is standard. And this here was definitely, when it came, it was not blunt, like it was not safe for practice, but it most certainly was not sharp by my standards. If this is what they call a working sword edge, I have to disagree, because the way it was, it definitely did not work. So I had to sharpen this on my work sharp, so I gave it a convex grind, and now it cuts just fine. And it wasn't a lot of work, so this is nice to point out, because some blades, the way they come, have such a poor blade geometry that it takes a lot of time to actually put a good edge on it. This, not a problem. So it didn't take me a whole lot of time at all. I think it was like half an hour, up to an hour, probably no more than that. And yeah, this is now nice and sharp, and it does cut. I tried the usual suspects, water bottles and tatami mats. It worked fine. One thing that I noticed, which may have to do with my training personally, because I'm most familiar with straight long swords or slightly curved blades. This one here is very strongly curved. I had some difficulty with the edge alignment and also the positioning of the blade. The really strong curvature definitely makes it handle differently and makes it cut differently than a longsword. So if you're used to strongly curved blades, then it's probably not an issue. But this way it was just a little bit off, but not a big deal. So it cut pretty well overall. This should work better with a closer, more pronounced slicing slash, if that's what you've practiced. But either way, it cuts just fine. And then I also did some testing against wooden branches. At first, relatively thin ones, and then working up just to see how it went. And I picked ones that are fairly flexible, that can take away some of the force of the impact, which means it didn't cut quite as deeply as it could have otherwise, but also puts less stress on the blade. And then gradually I increased it and went to heavier stuff that has more impact. Eventually I also used it on a massive piece of wood on the beach. It was pretty old and dried and not too hard, but definitely a fairly massive target, and just embedded the blade in it. Not a problem. Again, it has a decent amount of flex that way, and it held up perfectly. I like the way the guard is shaped and beveled. It looks quite nice. Pretty well fitted. What I've noticed is the fit on the flat is very, very tight, and then there are just tiny gaps on either side of the edge or the spine of the blade. There's no rattle or anything. The guard is still perfectly solid, as is the pommel, so it's a really strong construction. Their motto apparently is beyond battle ready, and you can tell that it's the sort of construction that can really be abused if you want to. It kind of goes in the direction of zombie tools as far as durability is concerned. The steel is not quite as hard as that, but yeah, it can definitely put up to abuse. If you just want to hack some random stuff to pieces, essentially, then this will perform really well. As far as the handling is concerned, when you first pick it up, there's nothing like immediately wrong. But after using it for a while, I certainly noticed the difference between this and a longsword or a messer or even a more strongly curved sword like other scimitars, shamshirs. The balance is a little further away from the guard than you see on a lot of historical swords. Now, if they are more intended more as choppers, then the balance is of course going to be further away. But it doesn't have the kind of lively feel that a lot of historical swords have. It moves well enough in the hand, but it's definitely more effort. You know, there are some swords that just kind of flow. They want to move, quote unquote, in the hand, and then they feel really lively. This is not a total dead weight, but definitely does not have the kind of grace, so to speak, that a longsword would. It's definitely a tank of a sword. It just doesn't handle as well as it could, mainly because it doesn't have a distal taper. It's the same thickness throughout, so that contributes to this sort of unresponsive feeling, but it's still not heavy by any means. So it's really just in direct comparison to other swords that you really notice it. If this is the first one you pick up, you probably think that it's just fine. It's just by comparison that it's lagging a little behind, so to speak, in handling characteristics. Against harder targets, I had a bit of an issue with the grip. The way it's wrapped with the crossing leather and the wire there, if anything goes wrong in the swing, like if it glances or if there is very hard impact, it's really painful on the hands. So this really just kind of tears into the hands and doesn't feel terribly good. The overall shape of the handle is fine. It's essentially an oval cross-section that has been flattened here, and it's the right kind of size and proportion. Nothing wrong with that. The wrap is a little hard on the hands, with these kind of crossing leather straps. That's usually more abrasive, and in particular, the wire. If you look here at the close-up, the wire sticks out quite a bit, and this really becomes uncomfortable quickly. Particularly also when you strike something hard, there's a lot of hand shock. So that also has to do with dynamic balance of the sword, of course. But yeah, it's essentially the way the shock travels through. This is really where it hits pretty hard, right where essentially the main hand is, particularly. And it's a little jarring, so it's not the most pleasant experience. Again, that's mainly comparing it to other swords I've tried so far. So it's not a huge problem, but it could definitely be improved. Other than that, I appreciate that there is a sharpened section here on the spine, so you can do false edge cuts with that. And yeah, the most outstanding feature of this is definitely how tough and durable it is. If you want to order one of these, I would recommend going for just a leather wrap without the wire, and also requesting a razor sharp edge, or whatever that means in that case, if you want to use it for cutting at least, because the standard edge that this came with just doesn't cut it, literally. Here's the leather sheath, pretty simple, nothing fancy. It's open in the back to accommodate the taper and the curvature. That makes it feel not terribly secure when it's there. It feels like it can fairly easily just kind of fall out and kind of flops around, so it's not super practical, but it comes with one, so that's nice. So yeah, that's a Scimitar by Sabersmith. In short, well made, very good fit and finish, super strong, functional. Just feels a little bit clunky in the hand, and the standard edge that at least this one came with was disappointing. But overall, it's a good purchase. Currently, I can't afford to keep it, so if you're interested in the Scimitar, check out the video description. And I hope you found the review helpful, and thanks for watching.